Here we have three more non-woke games. We're going to run through Soul Calibur 6, Grime, Tinge of Terror, and Other Side.
Soul Calibur 6.
Soul Calibur 6 is a bit of a novelty, as there aren't that many 3D fighters, much less 3D weapon-based fighters. It's a game that can be as deep or as complex as you want it to be. You can sidestep attacks, parry, evade, and it has a lethal hit system that gives more personality to the characters and more. I try to not go into too much depth because I am from the ye old days when not everything about a game was revealed online, so leave some mystery for you to figure out or for you to experience. The moves are impactful, they are well animated, and the character designs are brimming with some old school creativity. You're likely to find some character, some weapon type or playstyle that appeals to you. The game's single player content comes in two modes. The first is story mode, which so far the writing is pretty good. The story of the three characters I've played so far are engaging and they're worthy of further exploration. Seska is a particular highlight as given modern writing conventions. It goes against the trend and shows that men and women can interact with each other quite fine, and it doesn't imply that the only strife women can have in this world is at the hands of men who hate women. The other single player mode has you creating a character, which is pretty decent, and you facing the consequences as a side character of the actions of the main cast. The game has no alphabet nonsense from what I have seen. But you may come across a little issue with Maxi. No, in the game Maxi isn't alphabet, but retarded freaks will claim Maxi is alphabet because, spoiler alert, he gets mad when Astaroth kills someone called Kiam, which is a crew member, but in reality, Kiam is simply Maxi's childhood friend, and he considers Kiam his brother, so if someone killed their brother, you will get mad. But the retard think that if two men aren't fighting each other, they must be alphabet. And given how weak game companies are, if there is another Soul Calibur, it's possible they may turn Maxi alphabet, much in the same way they turn Testament to be a he, she, and turn Bridget to be a he, she as well. The downside is that Soul Calibur 6 is an old game, and if you don't have a friend to play with, you might have issues getting matches because the online leaves a lot to be desired. The player pool is also quite small and you won't have that big esports scene if that's your thing.
I'll paint you blood red! You're mine! You're mine!
Tinge of Terror.
At first I thought this game might be woke because the two entities in the opening appeared as if they might be both female, but as the game started I realized this game was made by drunk crazy people high on weed. I have no idea, I've never played a game with this type of aesthetic before. The aesthetics kind of remind me of Beksinski's paintings, not something that's very common in games. It's a creative 2D Metroidvania game. For those too young to know, this means it's a 2D side-scroller action RPG where you gain power-ups. These power-ups are very important because they allow you to tackle further combat challenges and also open up new pathways for traversal, including previously out of reach or out of bounds areas. Now, as you can imagine, seeing as how things are just freakish amalgamations of flesh and stone, there won't be any dudes exploring each other's orifices or any pronoun nonsense in this game, so you're safe on this one as far as woke is concerned. The downside is one of its very strengths, and that is the art style. This otherworldly horror art style might actually be a turn off to some people, and the game isn't exactly a AAA production. The animations are a little bit stiff and a little bit off, so those are some of the downsides to this game. I still think it's a worthwhile experience, and don't underestimate the importance of novelty. Novelty doesn't always mean that it's a bad thing, but it can elevate an experience from mediocre to good or from good to great. An example of this is Devil May Cry, the Devil May Cry that I think it's Team Ninja made, the one that they made Dante this young, weird, edgy boy. The action was fine, a little bit too easy, but in that game you had this mechanic where limbo or hell would seep into the real world and the environment would bend and warp and thing. I found that interesting. That was novel to me. But my brother didn't find it interesting because he played American McGee's Alice or Alice in Wonderland, one of them, on PC a long time ago. And that game already had the warping environmental thing. So what was interesting to me, he's seen done already. Gothic melee XCOM with chicks. That's a pretty accurate description of Other Side. This is a squad-oriented turn-based strategy game with influence or inspiration from roguelite. You play as an entity that's fighting against the darkness, but upon failing, you split your remaining power into your daughters or units that can carry out your fight on the front lines across eras. Admitted that those sound wicked. I know if wokeism didn't infect everything, this is a premise that I would actually want to see done in anime and movies and TV series, but seeing as how things are woke, let's keep it as is. But back to the game, if I were to describe the game in one word, it would be cyclical, both from a narrative perspective and gameplay. It being a roguelite means you're expected to fail, and each time you fail, you basically reset. On every other difficulty apart from the easiest one, you can only heal your units by sacrificing other units of the same level. So we'll end up with a cycle of building units up to the same level to heal your main roster. And sometimes you can even inherit the traits and stats of previous units. And even the units that you sacrifice aren't fully dead. They go into the graveyard that you can then revive them and they can again become part of the cycle. So that's the idea of Other Side. One of the biggest striking and perhaps the best draw to this game is the aesthetic. Black and white with heavy contrast with red accents. A very striking, very unique color palette. You don't have that many black and white games. The other one that was black and white that I recall was Hatred, and that one had a whole bunch of people getting upset over it. The bosses are pretty cool, and the overall theme for the game is very, very interesting. Now, this might be the most hit or miss recommendation I've made. I've told you the advantages of the game. Now the disadvantages are tied to the same strength or the same theme of it being cyclical. Now the problem is if you run in a circle enough, that becomes boring, repetitive, monotonous, grindy, and on difficulties other than the easiest one, that is what this game can devolve into. So my recommendation is to play the game on the lowest difficulty. If you do that, then I think you can have a good time with the game. But the moment you go beyond that, and how the game is truly meant to be played is part of your experience, your enthusiasm or fondness for the game may drop precipitously. Still, despite all of that, it wouldn't be honest to say that I regret the time I spent with the game. If it sounds intriguing or you're interested in for whatever the reason, and you like what you see, maybe wait until there's a sale on this one. But if you get it at a good enough price, I think that you will not regret the experience of it.